Hey everyone, welcome to the video. My name's Steve, and if you're new to this channel, these videos are all about digging deeper on the cost of ownership. Currently that is my Porsche 992 Carrera 2. Today's video is all about taking a look around the car after a year's ownership and taking you through some points and things that maybe you'd be interested to know about: wear and tear, maintenance, any squeaks, rattles, things that have come up that I haven't mentioned before, and basically just updating you on any new opinions I have about things around the car. So I've now owned this car for a year. If you've watched the previous two videos, I've been through the running costs and the devaluation of the car and what it has cost me in terms of market value. Today I'm basically just going to go around the car. We're going to take a look and see if there's any damage. We're going to take a look at anything I will bring up, a bit like the tyre wear and any other things that I was concerned about, and see what condition they're in. I'm going to go inside the interior after that, and I'm going to point out some things that have cropped up since I have been using the car daily over the last 12 months. Now, the first point of call on these cars is probably going to be to take a look at the front end and see if there is any stone chipping. When I bought this car, I went through the process of a ceramic coating, which was a Gen 3 product. So far, none of that seems to have chipped off. I do think that I have managed, at the moment, to avoid any stone chipping. You can see in the reflection there that it does look pretty smooth and there's no obvious scratches, dents, chips. One of the things I pointed out in an earlier video is inside these grills. You can see you've got the radiators. Apart from what looks like some dead flies, it would appear that they've stayed intact. I did have an issue on my 718 Cayman where I could see the stones had got lodged in there, bent some of the fins, but so far I think it seems to be that they've survived. Overall, across the front of the car, it seems to have done all right. I know the ceramic coating doesn't protect any stone trippings or anything, but it doesn't seem to have suffered any. I think we're doing okay. If we just take a walk around the sides of the car, the first thing that I will say is that this particular front left wheel I've managed by good luck more than anything else, and possibly the fact that these Pirelli P0s have got a little bit of a depth on them, protecting the edge of the alloy wheel, that I have managed not to scuff this yet. Had a couple of close calls, but these are the standard 19-inch ones on the front, and these Pirelli P0s seem to have done a good job of protecting them with that little bit of a ridge on there. But generally, seem to be alright. I haven't had any problems with anything down here. I haven't scuffed or caught anything. I haven't had any problems with this sort of area. I mean, the plastic that they put on from the factory to protect the new flared wheel arches seems to be doing its job. Looking around the back, again, I seem to have survived with these alloy wheels at the back. The offside, from my point of view, with it being a right-hand drive car, sometimes struggle a little bit with visibility when it comes to low curbs and things, but it's been okay. Around the back in here, these vents that are controlling airflow coming in from under here still seem to be okay. There's nothing too much in there. They're a bit of a pain in the backside to clean inside of, but other than that, they're all right. Coming around the back of the car, I haven't really had any issues with anything around here. I've not had any issues with the spoiler. I've not had any issues with the deck, with opening. I've not even need to go in there so far yet. And basically around this side of the car, we don't have any of the issues either. It's about the same as the other side. So the one thing I have noticed on the top here is this rubber that seems to be obviously where this, I can feel the two mounting points here for if you want to put roof racks on. Not overly fond of the finish of that. I think that could have been done better. The standard lights have been absolutely no bother. I find them extremely bright. The high beams are even brighter, which is good. I don't think I needed to go higher spec on those. They've been totally fine over the winter and in the dark nights. The one quirk I have found, and this is to do with the locking and the car opening, you can set the settings inside the car so that you can have just the driver's door or both doors open when you use the key fob and you press the open button. Now on the key we've got open, lock, and we've got just the front bonnet, which is that one, not the rear. The rear is done by the buttons that are inside the doorway. What I don't like about this is I've got it set to only have my driver door open with the button and not the passenger door. With the front, if we press the open button here, you'll see the front pops up door handle opens as well. Opening the boot on this car seems to open all the doors at the same time, and I'm not really overly fond of that. All the cars I've had, usually when you open the boot on a car, it only opens the boot and you have to press the opening to unlock the whole car. The other thing that I've noticed that is in the winter, it's not too bad at the moment, but when it was cold, you press this and you pop up, you get that gap so that you can get your fingers underneath, and then you can pull the tab and lift. Now, in the winter, I was finding that when this was totally covered in snow, or even if it was just very, very, very cold, you press the button, and basically if I pressed it, it would nearly stay the same height as that, and to get your fingers in underneath and try and lift it while it was very cold and you were desperately trying to put something in the boot was quite difficult. So that was a bit of a pain in the backside. That wasn't something I was really used to. The only other thing we need to talk about on the outside of this car, I think, is tyre wear. Now, I did buy a digital tyre gauge for this car. If we look at that graphic on the screen, you can see that I'm just over 6mm wear on the front. And then if we look at the rears, you can see that I'm 6 or under on the backs. Now, usually from new on tyres on cars, you get an 8mm tread depth, and we can go along and we can take a quick look at the backs here. Still got 4 good grooves on them tyres. They do look a bit worn on the back. I would be interested to know if anybody else in the comments section can tell me how much tyre wear they went through after so many miles on their car, and whether I'm doing about right or whether I'm doing too much, because I think if I was taking a guess at this car, by the time I come around to the service, if I've done maybe 10,000 miles, these rear wheels, I don't know if I'm going to want to change them or not. I would probably going to be somewhere down to about 3mm tyre wear by then. So if we go inside the car, I will take around a couple of points in there and we will discuss some features of that. Okay, so hopefully you can hear me a little bit better in here now. It's a bit windy outside today, so I do apologise for that one. Inside here, I haven't had too many issues, if I'm honest. My first point would probably be, and somebody else brought this up quite early on in one of my first videos, was that they weren't very happy with the build quality of probably the interior of this car. Having lived with it now for 12 months, I think I've got to be honest, I'm going to probably agree. There's a few things about the interior that is maybe a little bit flimsy, if I was to be honest. Now, the actual setup and the system software and everything like that seems to be behaving itself. That's all okay. I've been through things about the digital dash that I wasn't happy with in the 5 fixes video, and I know the tone of that video is possibly a little bit strong. I am still annoyed about the fuel gauge being blocked, especially with my hands over that position, because if I start the car up, that is still sort of the position that we're in. And what I've noticed is that from here with my face, if you've got your hand at the 10 and 2, the fuel gauge is still completely blocked. Because again, if we go into here, the only way to get the non-customized view back is to go through all of that there to get back to the one that does give you a fuel bar, but I don't really want the rest on there. I want to be able to have it on the custom menu. So if they could fix that one thing, that's the only one thing I feel like I'm still having to live with in this car that's a little bit of an irritation. The one thing I will draw attention to, and some people might have noticed it if you've been on my Instagram, I posted a photo of that. That was the first thing that started to make a noise on this car. Basically, this storage box is all one piece. And I mean, it's fairly loose when it comes to being fixed down anyway, from just the way that it's designed, but it was starting to squeak something chronic. Now, I tried to book it in to maybe go and get it sorted, but we're in the middle of a strange situation at the moment where I can book it in as a service. I need this car every day. I don't have access to a spare car, so I'm just having to live with it. So that's the first thing that's making noise on that side. The other thing really is the passenger seat belt. Where it is now, as you can see, it's resting. It does have a tendency to rattle backwards and forwards on this frame. And what people have said is, if I put my hand around, you can see there's the plastic there. If you pull it up, move it higher up, it does help stop that rattle. The other thing I've noticed on the driver's side that started to squeak a little bit is this trim. I can hear it squeaking at this end right next to my ear. That's getting a little bit annoying. The other squeak I can hear, but I haven't narrowed it down yet, I think is something to do with that part of the trim in the back. The rear seats, they didn't make any noise at all until I did the interior video, which basically had me put them down and put them back up again, and ever since then, if it's really cold, they seem to squeak. That goes away once the cabin gets warmed up. Now, when the car does get warm in here, it does tend to get rid of a lot of those things, so I'm wondering whether it is something to do with the cold and heat and expansion of things moving that might be the cause of these things. That one definitely doesn't. That one's there permanently. I think I'm going to have to try and wedge it a little bit more to get it to stop in the short term. The only other thing I have noticed that's a little bit flimsy around this car is this. Now, I don't know, I think you can see that moving there. And these buttons aren't solid clicking buttons like this and this. They are basically like flat with a mechanism behind, and although they click and you can hear them click, I'm wondering how long they're going to last over the lifetime of the car before this entire thing has sort of button clicking issues. This side of things, this controls the navigation, or basically the entertainment system, so we turn it on. So with it on, obviously you can use this and it'll take you up and down through the things. Has anybody ever used this? I will literally be honest with you, that is the second time I have touched this particular switch, including these two buttons that go with it for the navigation. It is so much easier and more intuitive for you to be able to sort of move through the menu with your hand on a touch screen. So I'm not, if anybody uses that, please tell me what you use it for, because I still wouldn't ever touch it. I would always put my hand towards the screen. I can't imagine it's easier to use while driving either. Other than that, everything else seems to be fine. I mean, they are nice proper clicking buttons. These are nice proper clicking buttons for the ones that I've got. I don't have the seat cooling that would be above there. Never had any problem with this. I've got absolutely no problem with any of the steering wheel controls. They all work great, very intuitive. No issues with the flappy paddles, as you would describe them, on either side. Another thing I have noticed is there was a lot of complaints about this and it being quite tightly sprung when you opened it. If you give it one little pull to there, it opens the door with an electronic switch. But if I pull it to that point, you hear a mechanical clunk, and I think that is obviously in case the electronic switch doesn't work. You've got the ability to pull the handle on there all the way rather than just relying on that electronic switch, but you don't have to open it all the way. That's as far as you need to get it to open the door there. On the point of visibility on this car, it's great out of my blind spots. I'm going to show you one thing to do with the fact that this car, although you look at the dimensions on paper, which I'll show you from the website, the front end and the back end are nigh on the same width. But when you're looking in the wing mirrors and you're trying to park, you've got a curvature line on the car, and I'm going to try my best to show it to you so that you can see just what I'm talking about. At the moment, in that rear view mirror, you can see you've got the flared wheel arch there. If we look down the line of this car, the line of the inside of the body, it scoops in towards the waist, and then you've got this wider rear body. But you'll know from the dimensions on the car that really the front and the back aren't any wider. What I've tended to find is when I've been parking the car and I've been trying to line up the back with a white line, for example, I end up having to be inside the car thinking that I'm pointing the front end more towards the right than I actually am, to make sure that this is actually in a straight line. So one thing that I have noticed, am I missing a piece of trim there, or is that basically what that is like? Because can everybody see the wiring in the bare? I've never really had a car that showed you that much of the underneath of the dash before, so if anybody can tell me if I'm missing anything there, or if everybody else's car's like that, I would be interested to know. In the winter, I did have a week where I did have to drive in the snow. I had no choice. I didn't have another car. I had to get to work. Even with just the standard tyres on the back, as long as I was careful with the throttle, I actually managed to get this car down the road in the snow, and it was okay. It got traction. It didn't really wave backwards and forwards from the rear end that you might have thought. So it did all right. I wouldn't do it all the time. It was a necessity, but it did survive. It was okay. Haven't had any recalls from any manufacturing changes. I know when I first bought the car, I asked at the dealer, was there any recalls needed to be done? Would they have to do anything to the car after it got delivered, anything cropped up? And they said no. There was a couple when the S was first launched where they had to do recalls to change a couple of things. One of them was the handbrake button. Apparently when they first brought this out with the ducket, this groove wasn't here and you could barely get your fingers in. That was a recall that they changed. Off the top of my head, I can't really remember what the other one was, but they did say there was one more that was done, and both of those were done before this car was delivered. I've checked the software system and so far I don't seem to have any software updates. There's been a couple of map updates that I've done that I just leave it on automatic and it does it whenever I'm in the car with my phone plugged in, so that seems to sort itself out and there's no issues there. And basically the car drives great. I've done 4,000 miles in it. The only things I've encountered really are interior creaks and rattles. I've gone through a little bit of tyre wear. If anybody can just comment down below and say what theirs is, see how far out I am. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like, and if you want to subscribe to see more in the future, please hit that subscribe button, and I will see you again in another video. Thank you very much. Bye.